Driving, 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 music's blaring in my ears. Engines roaring, 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 the horizon's drawing near. Pedal to the floor, no more feet in the door, gonna drive right out of this bit.
Welcome to Nonprofit Insider. My name is David Unger, and I'm pleased to be hosting a show with the executive directors and key people of local nonprofits. I have worked in the nonprofit world myself for over 30 years. In those years, I've realized that the majority of the community does not know about the organizations that provide critical services and benefits to our community we sometimes take for granted. Nonprofit Insider is a chance to hear about these organizations that touch so many in our community. The opinions expressed on Nonprofit Insider are not necessarily those of WMPG, its staff, and underwriters, or of USM. As you heard with the weather, today we have Amy Thomas, and Amy's the Executive Director of the Sexual Assault Response Services of Southern Maine. Hi, Amy.
Hi, David. How are you today?
Good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Well, it's good having you. How would you describe the Sexual Assault Response Center of Southern Maine?
That's a very good question.
I've been known to come up with questions.
I would describe it as, first of all, one of the probably hardest working staff and board that I have ever worked with, to provide incredible services both directly and indirectly to survivors, victims of sexual trauma in the area. It's been an incredible journey for 41 years of providing these services.
Let's talk a little bit about the services.
Sure, I'd love to.
What type of services do you provide? Because,
Right.
it's a pretty vague...
It is. When you think about it, we provide both proactive and reactive services. So one of the things that we do, one of our programs that we're extremely proud of, is our education services. So we provide education services to almost 9,000 students every year in both Cumberland and York counties.
When you talk about education services to the students, that means you go into the schools?
Yes. We are asked to come into classrooms, kindergarten all the way through college, to talk about different aspects of sexual assault that could be happening at any age, but it's always age appropriate. We have curriculum that's written, and it goes along with the Maine learning standards, and we have things like a puppet show that we do with kindergarten, first and second graders, talking about their bodies, talking about health, talking about good touch and bad touch, and also really asking them to identify a trusted adult in their life that they could talk to if they had any concerns or questions. Then we go into talking about cyberbullying, which is huge right now, and talking about that with middle school students and also high school students. We also talk about healthy dating, sexual assault, sexual harassment, and do that all the way up through college. And really our education services are in place to hopefully prevent any type of sexual violence and trauma happening and really reduce it for the generations to come. So we're very proud of being able to do that. We have educators that are specifically trained and can go in and provide programming. Once again, everything is at no cost to the school system.
Let's talk a little bit about cyberbullying, because that's a topic that comes up a lot in the news, and
Yes.
people hear a lot about it.
Yes.
How would you define that?
It's tough to define, but it's anything that is any type of unwanted comment, suggestion, picture.
So you're talking about like on Facebook, Instagram, email,
Absolutely.
Twitter.
Texting, anything
Okay.
like that is using electronics or any type of social media to make somebody feel very uncomfortable. And it happens a lot. It happens earlier and earlier. And we want students to realize the impact that it has. And we also want parents to realize some of the impact that it has and what's going on. So we do have a parental curriculum as well that we can go and we can present to different school districts or different groups of parents that may want to learn more about it.
So when cyberbullying happens, do you find that usually I'm going to use the word victim, okay?
Yeah.
So usually the victim knows the person, or is it somebody cold?
Usually, especially at the younger age in the school systems, they usually know the victim. They know the perpetrator. They have maybe some type of connection or friend or somebody that knows them. So it's electronics and so forth are making our world much smaller, and usually the victim does know who it is, or knows somebody who knows somebody, and that's how it all happens and gets passed around, and it's
It
really
must
tough.
be really scary for the victim, that where all of a sudden they're on their computer just looking at Facebook and some message comes up.
Exactly. So we really want to go in, we want to talk about it, we want to be open about it with students. We have a fantastic, what's called a Prezi presentation that really shows them not only just statistics and words, but shows them different videos, different ideas, and how it really can impact people. So we really want students to realize what's happening and what they're doing, and also perhaps what they can do about it. How they can report, what's the safest and best way to report, because that's how it's going to stop.
Does the curriculum do things to prevent it from happening?
We certainly offer suggestions. We certainly offer school suggestions as well. If they want some help with try and help with some policies and protocols that are in place. We also do groups within schools. So sometimes schools will ask us to come in and do a group. Perhaps there are particular students that might be asked to join a group to get together and talk. We also do groups of students who are interested in prevention work. So they can also, hearing it from your peers is wonderful. And so the peer groups are really having a big impact on what's happening with their school's culture. And that's something we also want to promote versus us coming in as adult educators.
Right.
Having their peers is really important as well.
So you've been in the nonprofit world for a chunk of time.
Yes, I have.
Our backgrounds are similar in
Yes.
that sense. As an executive director, what do you see some of the challenges that an executive director of a nonprofit faces today?
I think
And you can't say funding because everybody says that.
I think that certainly is a challenge. I'm not going to deny that, but that was not going to be my answer. I think one of the challenges is the many different hats that an executive director has to wear on a daily basis, and sometimes that can be frustrating, where you may feel like you can't do one particular aspect of your job to the best of the ability that you'd like to be able to do it. So I think that by, especially with a small nonprofit and a small
Right.
staff, that can be very challenging. It's something that I really enjoy. I really do enjoy nonprofits. I like to be involved in many aspects of the agency and the programs, but sometimes that can be frustrating as well when you are expected to do many things at different times. So that can be hard.
And you and I were talking before the show as part of our setup that you're looking for a development person for the first time.
Yes, we are.
So an agency not having a development person for as long as you've been in existence,
Yes.
for the amount of services that you're having, means that all the development work comes on to your plate and
Yes.
trickles down.
It does. That's exactly it. We have been fortunate to once in a while be able to work with a consultant or two
Right.
for different, either a different fundraiser or writing a different grant, perhaps a large federal grant. But the day-to-day development does usually come to the executive director. We have a fantastic board of directors who will help out at any point that they can. But the daily stuff is definitely part of my job.
You just made a very interesting comment, and when I do consulting, they think that the development work falls on the development director, but the executive director really is the go-to person, especially for major gifts.
Yes.
Donors like to hear from the person in charge
Yes,
about
they do.
why they need their money.
That's exactly right. That's
And
exactly
so many
right.
nonprofits kind of forget that, and that's my opinion.
No, I think you're right. And while we've been talking about this new position for our agency, which we're very excited about, it's become clear that is something that major donors do want to hear from, is hear from the executive director. And so that's something that we definitely want to make sure that we remember to set up as a way to get some support for the agency and its programs.
So do you find board recruitment around this time in the agency's lifespan difficult?
It really, since I've been at the agency, it really hasn't been, actually. It's been wonderful that we have been able to connect with different people who have been interested for one reason or another in being on our board of directors. And we do have people from many different professions, many different backgrounds and experiences, which is great. Which is
Right.
really what we need. As you know, for any good board, we need somebody in finance. We need somebody with marketing. We need somebody that has, different type of skills. We have law enforcement on our board, which is wonderful because we work with law enforcement
Right.
a lot within our services. So we're very fortunate.
Oh, good. So this is the time of the show where I drop the bombshell and I present you a trivia question.
Okay.
I give you the question, and then we go into my mid-break, and then we
Okay.
go for the answer.
All right.
And you're very fortunate because your trivia question's 2 parts.
Oh, lovely. Yes.
All right. What number of women are raped in their lifetime? And the second part is what number of men are raped in their lifetime?
Okay.
This is WMPG and Nonprofit Insider, and today I'm talking to Amy Thomas, Executive Director of the Sexual Response Services of Southern Maine on WMPG. So, do you have the answers?
I believe so.
Okay, I'll tell you if you're right or wrong, at least from my sources.
Well, I'll tell you my sources.
Okay.
For women, 1 in 4. For men, 1 in 6.
Okay, I have 1 in 5 women are raped in their lifetime, about 22 million women, and 1 in 7 men are raped in their lifetime, approximately 1.6 million affected in the United States.
Okay.
We were close.
We were close.
My sources are from the Joyful Heart Foundation.
Ah, very nice. Very nice. My sources are from Maine.
Okay.
So, in the state of Maine, I will say it is 1 in 5. So
That's a pretty scary number.
It's a very scary number when you think about it, and has had some type of sexual assault or trauma in their lives. It's a really scary number.
So my big question about that is that a reported number, or is that just a generalized number based on statistics?
That's a reported number. So
it's actually going to be much worse.
It most likely is, yes. It most likely is. So I think that what happens, and what sometimes is confusing to a lot of people, I know it was for me, was the number of reported sexual assaults has risen, or when it rises for any particular time frame, people think, well, all these efforts then aren't worth it. It's rising. What they have to realize is it's the number of reported assaults, and that's
Right.
a good thing. We want people to report. We want people to get the help that they need. So reporting is a good thing.
So you're saying, though, if the numbers are increasing because the reporting numbers are up, people are more comfortable coming forward
Yes.
and saying, this did happen to me.
Exactly. And I think that our culture and our stigma around sexual assault is changing, and that's what we want to see happen, is that people are feeling more comfortable reporting, going to the hospital, going to law enforcement, going through the court and the judicial system if that's what's necessary, and making sure that they're taking care of themselves and those that they love.
What is the biggest stigma about reporting? What are people hesitant about?
They feel ashamed. They feel that it's their fault. They feel maybe they brought this on themselves, that it shouldn't have happened to them, perhaps, or maybe they think it should have because they were doing something wrong, and they feel awful about it and feel that it just shouldn't be reported and should be just hidden in something that they need to deal with themselves.
As a social worker, you got to bring this stuff out and at least share with somebody so you can move on with your life.
Exactly.
When reporting does happen, is it confidential?
Yes, it is. All of our services are confidential. Sometimes we're the first ones that hear somebody's story, whether it be on our crisis and support line, whether it be we've had people that have come up to us at different events that we might be tabling at and providing information at, and they might come up to one of us as an advocate and say, I just want to tell you something, and this is the first time I've told anybody. And that's great. We're really happy to be there for them.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, like
What?
usual. Someone makes a call for the first time. They finally get the nerve up
Right.
and do it.
Yep.
Walk the listeners through the steps so there's some comfort.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. I can tell you about my first call, actually. And I was very nervous. I went through, first of all of our advocates go through a 40-hour training. That is an
The
unbelievable
advocates
training.
are
On our crisis and support line. So our volunteers
Okay.
on our crisis and support line go through an extensive training. It's a fantastic training for anybody. And I went through it. I was nervous. I was nervous to get that first call. I did. It was from a 25-year-old male who was about to talk to his mom because he was remembering things that happened to him and assaults that happened to him when he was younger. And he was very nervous to talk to his mom. And he asked me if I could just act like and be his mom for a few minutes so he could practice. And I said, absolutely, I would love to do that for him. And so he did, and we talked a little bit more after that. He did a lot of processing. He did a lot of remembering. He did tell his story to me. That was his choice. Everything is absolutely up to the listener how they want to handle the phone call. And we never hear back from, sometimes we hear back from callers, but because we have different people on all the time, you're not going to be guaranteed you're going to speak to the same person. And I was very happy, though.
So you don't do any follow-up?
If the caller would like us to follow up, we can do a referral to one of our advocates in the office if they want follow-up services, yes. But this gentleman did not at that time, but he did call back and want to somehow get word to me that it had gone very, very well with his mom, which made me very happy. So that was a good first phone call to have.
That's great.
Other phone calls could be very different. It's really based on what the needs are.
You had mentioned that there's 2 levels of volunteers.
Yes.
That was level 1, but level
Yes.
2 will actually go to the hospital or the law enforcement agency with the individual?
Yes. If a victim has recently been assaulted and is going to go to the hospital to have a examination and have a forensic exam, then we have advocates that will accompany them to the hospital, and they'll stay with them the whole time. It can be a very, very scary process, really, to have that done, and so our advocates can be with them, and the goal is to actually have that victim feel extremely comfortable, and also have somebody to talk to and answer questions for them if they have any questions. But the victim is in charge because usually they've had most everything and all their choices taken away from them at that point, and that's how they're feeling. So it's very important that the advocate is there for them, letting them know that they can make decisions and making sure they have the information to do that. We also do the same for police stations or law enforcement. Wherever a report's going to be made, we'd be happy to be there with a victim to help them while they go through the report with the police.
So if I were to put this into one sentence, the victim knows that they're not by themselves.
That's exactly what it is. They're not alone. There's support there for them. We also talk a lot to family members. We talk a lot to intimate partners of people who have been assaulted or are even survivors. We talk to parents of children who have been assaulted. We want to be there for everybody. So anybody that cares for somebody can also call and get support too. We do a lot of referrals. So our thing is that we want to be there to have people feel they're not alone and to support them, but also refer them out to, counselors, or if they need medical help, or if they, perhaps need housing or whatever they need help with. We want to make sure that they have all the resources they can.
So in 30 seconds, if I were a donor, why would I want to give any funds to you?
Well, that's a very good question. I think our donors give funding for a variety of reasons. One of them, though, is because, and I think the most important is because they would like to see a world that is free of sexual violence and sexual trauma for all of its members. And by giving to our organization, they can be assured that the funding would be used for that end, whether it be, as I said, proactive or reactive. But that is really the basis and the reason for giving money to the organization. All of our services are at no cost to anyone, so everything we do is free of charge. So the money.
So there's no sliding scale.
Nothing at all. We don't charge for anything. So victims, school systems, whoever we're working with, there's no cost at all for all of our services.
Wow. So that must be a drain on your budget.
It's it's not easy. I know we weren't supposed to talk about resources, but it's not easy. But we're fortunate to.
I opened the door.
Yeah, you did. You did. Thank you. We are fortunate to have some wonderful, long-standing financial resources. We do have a contract with the state. We have a federal contract as well. Both United Ways of both York County and Cumberland County provide funding. We have subcontracts with some other agencies as well. We have the Chocolate Lovers Fling.
I was waiting for that one.
I'm glad you were. We have the Chocolate Lovers Fling as our every April as our largest fundraiser, which is
Your signature event.
it's a signature event, and it's a lot of fun, and puts something that's kind of very traumatic into a different light, but is a lot of fun. And we do rely on both corporate and individual donors. So absolutely, it's really imperative that we expand our financial resources as much as possible.
Do you have any questions for me?
No, but I appreciate the opportunity to.
Oh, we're not done yet.
Then I have no questions for you at this time, David.
So, if you had a crystal ball and you wanted to project what the agency would look like in 5 years, what would it be?
We would have an office location in York County. That will happen. I don't need a crystal ball for that. That is going to happen within 5 years. It's very important that we have a very large presence in York County, but we do it out of an office in Portland, and it really needs to be also done out of an office in York County. So that would be the first thing on my crystal ball. I would love to have at least 2 more educators and 2 more advocates, so that we could provide even more services and perhaps expand our realm of services that we have.
I forgot to ask you an important question.
Okay.
How many people are you serving right now?
Well, it depends on, as I said, we serve almost 9,000 students and community members with our education program.
Well, let's filter it down.
Yep.
How many people call the hotline?
About 2,400 per year. So about 24.
Different numbers or repeats?
A little of both. We don't have too many repeats, actually. There's a select few that are repeat callers, but generally they're different callers all the time that call in.
So how many people would you think are affected by this but don't call and are keeping it in them?
Oh, that would be hard to predict. I think just as many, there are just as many that don't call that do. And I think that another thing I'd like to see happen, which is happening, and another program that we have is we do have support groups. We have both men's and women's survivor support groups. So that's really in something that we're expanding on as well. We're going to have some support groups in York County this year as well for women. But I think our men's support groups have been extremely popular, and we've had many men step forward and want to be part of it. So I think that some of the tables are turning, and some of the stigmas to do with men and sexual assault are also changing, which is wonderful. So in my crystal ball, I think we would have just as many men as women who need our services are able and feel free to ask for them.
The part that amazes me is the cyberbullying. So I'm sorry to keep coming back to that.
That's okay.
That's just something that is mind-boggling.
Yes.
I know a young man in 8th grade who had a situation. It wasn't sexual, but it was more
A harassment. Yes.
And you just can't trace it.
That's the thing.
It was a very, very difficult situation.
Yep.
Because it kept happening.
Sure.
And you couldn't stop it.
That's the hard part is some of it can be contained or stopped, and some of it can't. And so I can imagine how frustrating it is when it just can't be, and it continues to go on and on. I guess all I can say is certainly, if anybody needs help at any point with something like that, to please give us a call. If we're not able to help with it, we'll be able to refer out with anything.
And if someone did want to contact you, how would they do that?
They can certainly go to our website, which is sarsonline.org. They can call that, which has our crisis and support line number.
It's a very good website, by the way.
Oh, thank you. We've worked on it, and we're very fortunate to have some great help with it. And that has our crisis and support line, so that they can call at any time and speak with anybody. They can certainly call our office. The number at the office is 828-1035 if they have a general question. And we really want anybody at any point to contact us and ask for anything that they need, and we'd be happy to help them.
Or if they want to make a donation.
A donation would be wonderful, and they can do that right on the website as well.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Well, I hope it was a good experience for you.
Wonderful experience. Thank you, David.
Sure. Next week, our show has a part 2 of a series. Nonprofit Insider is pleased to have Representative Mike Michaud on the show. Mike Michaud is running for the Blaine House this fall, and this is the second interview of hopefully a 3-part series with all 3 candidates. So join us next Friday at 1 o'clock for part 2 of this series. The music appears courtesy of Mike Hubbard. You can find it on www.michaelhubbardmusic.com. Check out Mike's website to see where he's playing this weekend. Thanks to Deb Danger, NPI's executive engineer. You can catch Deb on Morning Street, Fridays at 6:30. If you know of a nonprofit that should be on the show, please email me at nonprofitnpi@davidunger.net. Past shows are archived on www.tcmgr.com.